Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's how-to homemade is going to be homemade gravy. And to a little bit of an extent, I am doing this one for you, Larry, mainly because you're saying rather consistently that you cannot get your gravy to come out right. And I know I myself have had issues with gravy, but I grew up eating homemade gravy, and my mom was always very specific about one thing when making the gravy, and that was to make sure that you have a slotted spatula or a fork. So it seemed like either of these was the secret or the key in how you use them to getting that perfect gravy. So with that being said, let's get into the gravy. I do want to point out that I made ribs today, so I'm using the leftover drippings from the ribs. Now, when making homemade gravy, using leftover drippings is definitely something you want to be using. I don't know how to make it without using the drippings, so and we're going to get started by carefully pouring all of those drippings into a pan. Now you do want to use, you don't want to use a pot, you want to use a pan. And there's some other stuff in there, I'm not going to use that. All right, so we've got our drippings in here. And if you wanted, you could really kind of pluck through and pull out some of that. I'm leaving it. I think that's gonna help give it flavor. And I'm also going to be kind of smashing it down with the spatula. All right, so now you can usually add a few different things. Milk or water, butter for sure, and flour. I don't think I'm going to use milk unless I really want to see how it thickens up, or if I'm not liking how it's thickening up, then I'll use the milk. So I'm going to use and start with butter and maybe just about a tablespoon's worth of butter. And I probably don't need the butter, but if you're familiar with my other videos, butter is always a must. And then some flour, which I can't reach. I can, I just have to get really creative about it. Like using the tongs. Let's see how this goes. Okay. And you know, I'm like the only one that really cooks and uses the flour, so why I store it up there, I have no idea. Now, with the flour, you are not going to want to use a whole bunch. The idea is you want to start out slow and increase the amount. So I'm going to just take a tablespoon, and I'm not even going to put that entire thing. I'm actually going to just sprinkle it. But the other thing that we need to do is get our burner turned on, and I'm gonna do it right between, we've got low here, this is medium, so just kind of between the two, but more favoring the medium. Now again, this is where we need the fork or that slotted spatula, and you know, the spatula may work better, but you're basically going to want to consistently keep that flour from caking together. So you want to make sure that it is separated, that you don't have any clumps in the flour, and that's why it's important to have something that you can push it down on the bottom with and let it kind of seep through. And so I'm just doing this. I'm taking it, pushing it flat against the bottom, and kind of stirring it. So I'm going to give that just a couple of minutes to get hot. And actually, I'm going to just turn it to medium. So I've now got this on medium. And let's see what happens. All right, you can see it's starting to bubble up just a little bit, right? That's what we want. That's great. We're going to take our spatula and we're going to just continue to make sure that that flour is not caking together and that it's being absorbed basically by the gravy into the gravy with the gravy. So see right there, we have a clump of the flour, and that's not what we want. All right, so you can really start to see it bubbling there, which is great. Again, this was one tablespoon of flour. I have just over half left, and I'm not going to use all of this. We're going to just sprinkle it in there. Just a little bit. Again, this is left over. And with the spatula, just continually kind of like pat it and stir it. Pat it down, stir it. And I can definitely see clumps. So if you even just kind of do this, when you're making your gravy, like that one right there, that's a clump of flour. So again, you're gonna just wanna continue that process of making a mess. No, I'm kidding. But just making sure that all of that flour is being absorbed back in to the gravy. And the flour really is just thickening that gravy for you, thickening those drippings. Now I'm going to turn it down. And I'm doing this again so I can kind of see, you can see, I'm not sure how I can, but there is definitely some flour in here that still needs to be dissolved. Usually the more flour you add, the thicker the gravy you're going to get. And let's say you went ahead, put in too much flour. At that point, you would just need to thin it out, and you could do that using water or milk. Milk would really make like a white gravy though, so it depends on what kind of gravy you're going for. And this is just a pork brown gravy that we're making. I think the gravy looks pretty good. It's still a little watery, so I think I am going to add in a little bit more of the flour. And again, just sprinkling that into your mixer. You don't want it clumpy. So again, you want it to like, you don't want to just throw it in there in one big glob. You want it spread out so you can go in and do your magic. And again, like I wing a lot of things. I watched my mother cook a lot of homemade meals, a lot of made from scratch. So I'm not even like 100%. I don't think she maybe would have used as much of the drippings, but you live and you live and you learn. So I use what I know, and it's worked out for me. So live and learn. And I'm going to let that sit for just a moment and start to bubble up. And you can always add salt and pepper. I always feel that the drippings have enough flavor and seasoning from being cooked, and obviously from the meat it came from, that I don't normally add anything else. All right. So now we've got a great thicker brown gravy. And I like that consistency, so I'm going to leave it. And again, you're going to want to make sure, see there's some flour that, wow, all right, there's some flour here that needs to be mixed in. All right, make sure you turn your burner off and enjoy your homemade gravy. Thank you all so much for watching.